Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick comments on the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition, and it looks like Game Pass was potentially coming over to PlayStation. All right, guys, before we get into this, my goal is to hit 10K subscribers by the end of the year, and I see a lot of you are new here. If you like daily content, you like these styles of videos, please consider hitting that subscribe button. There's been a roller coaster over the last couple of weeks as the Activision Blizzard deal is being looked at by the market authorities. Particularly, we saw yesterday the CMA with concerns over the deal, trying to pretty much protect PlayStation, saying that they may not be able to be competitive going forward if this deal does go through, citing things like how big Call of Duty is and the fact that cloud gaming right now, Xbox is the leader. And if this deal does go through, it will make it even harder for other companies to be able to try to compete, which I don't think is a very valid argument. There's still going to be competition in the cloud gaming area. Microsoft is going to be the top when it comes to cloud gaming with Xbox Cloud Gaming, as they are currently right now the best service out there, and they're going to continue to grow. But you're going to have competition coming in, just like we saw with the TV and movie sector when Netflix started. And now we look at that, all of the different streaming services out there. But it's not all bad news in terms of people trying to stop the deal for Xbox, as Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of Take-Two, has come out and he has no problem with the Activision Blizzard deal and Xbox acquiring them. But first of all, we know Take-Two has already been involved with some pretty big acquisitions. They recently acquired Zynga for $13 billion, which was their big step forward into getting more of the mobile market. As we know, Zynga, a massive company that makes a ton of mobile games, some of their biggest ones like the Farmville series. So Take-Two went ahead and they acquired that. And Strauss Zelnick says this in terms of that acquisition: "We were already a leader in the console and PC space, and we believe we had already the best collection of intellectual property in the space. However, mobile is the fastest growing part of the interactive entertainment business." And I mean, you look at Take-Two with some of the games that they have, like Red Dead Redemption, like Grand Theft Auto, some of the biggest games that we have ever seen in terms of the amount of money that they make. And yes, Take-Two is definitely a leader in the video game industry. Then they went out and purchased a leader in the mobile games industry, and there are still plenty of companies out there that are going to be willing to be able to compete with Take-Two when it comes to mobile games. I know it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but you can kind of say the same thing when it comes to Xbox and Microsoft. They aren't the leader in the video game industry. They're up there, one of the biggest companies, and now they're going to purchase one of the biggest, if not the biggest, publisher of games with games like Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard, and there's still going to be plenty of competition after this deal goes through. Then he was asked about the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, and here's what he says: "Ultimately, the consumer votes, and if we create great hits, which is our business, the consumers will show up and no one can take that away from us. The entertainment business is the antithesis of a fungible, commoditized business. Every title stands alone, so it sort of doesn't compete with anything else, and yet it's highly competitive in a way. In other words, we compete with everything and we compete with nothing. You can't replace one of our titles with another title." And you could look at that and say, hey, I guess maybe PlayStation has a point when it comes to Call of Duty, where he is saying you cannot replace one title with another title. And there are plenty of other first-person shooters out there, but one-to-one directly, you won't ever replace Call of Duty. That is actually a fact, but you definitely will be able to compete in the first-person shooter genre and the multiplayer first-person shooter genre by making different styles of games that attract people's attention who play the Call of Duty franchise. And I think PlayStation definitely will be able to do that going forward if they want to. That is the question. I mean, they haven't made Resistance, they haven't made Killzone in a number of years. Those are two of their biggest first-person shooters. If you think about a third-person shooter game like SOCOM, they haven't gotten back into that. They're now fully in Jim Ryan's virtuous cycle, which is essentially recycling these same IPs that make them a lot of money. We're seeing that with The Last of Us remake. We're seeing that with the rumor of Horizon Zero Dawn's potential remake or remaster, because they know those games, they can put less amount of effort into bringing out the same version with slight upgrades, and they're going to make a ton of money off of it. And Zelnick also talks about competition and how their goal isn't to necessarily beat the competition, but it's to work with them and weather the storm, depending on the cycle, depending on the year, depending on whatever is going on within the industry. If they are losing money, if they aren't making as much money as they can, and then coming out of that on top. He says here, now and then you have a bad year in the entertainment business. You have to be capitalized well enough to withstand that and give your teams confidence that they're going to live to play another bet. And I mean, when you think about that, you think about PlayStation's thought on what is going on right now. They're really just trying to make sure there is no competition with Xbox. They want things to be the same as they have been over the last number of years, especially the last generation. They are very happy with how that went. They don't want that to change. And that's their biggest reason, I believe, for trying to stop this deal. They know that it is going to take a lot of work to come out of this better, to come out of this making more money, or at least the same amount of money that they were making before Activision Blizzard went over to Xbox. And then on top of that, they know with Call of Duty being their biggest seller every single year, they make the most amount of money off it. They've had the marketing rights to it. Now, even if they were making just the same amount of money, they're going to be funding Xbox and the Xbox ecosystem, which will help them grow. And then eventually, I think, will lead to Xbox being ahead of PlayStation in the video game industry. And it doesn't stop there. We have some more information that has come out. And this is something that I've talked about on my channel before, saying that if Sony would allow Xbox Game Pass onto their platform, you can bet Xbox will be putting Xbox Game Pass onto PlayStation. And in fact, this was something that was proposed, and apparently it was blocked by Sony. So we have a tweet here from Tom Warren saying, Microsoft says Sony has chosen to block Game Pass from PlayStation and that it has elected to protect its revenues from sales of newly released games rather than offer gamers the choice of accessing them via its subscription, PlayStation Plus. And this was another response from Xbox to the CMA and their current investigation into the deal. And they say here, nor is there any basis for the idea that acquiring Call of Duty could tip subscription services in Xbox's favor. Sony has chosen to block Game Pass from PlayStation, so it is not available on PlayStation, as all games that are available on Game Pass are also available to purchase. PlayStation gamers will continue to have the ability to buy Call of Duty on PlayStation, and doing so will still cost less than the cost of switching by buying a new Xbox console. Which, I mean, yes, of course, purchasing a brand new game at full price is going to be less than buying an Xbox console, but at the end of the day, I mean, you got to look at it in its entirety, where if you go out and buy an Xbox instead of paying, I think it's $70 now for Call of Duty, and then you go and purchase Xbox Game Pass on top of that, you're paying $15 for the subscription. You can multiply that by 12. That roughly comes to $108 before taxes and all that type of stuff. But then you take 70, you multiply that by 2, brings it to $140. So you're able to buy 2.5 games, you could say, on PlayStation for the same price of paying Xbox Game Pass for an entire year and getting access to that massive catalog of games, plus all first-party games day and date. So the comparison, I don't think is very fair, but they are making the point that when you look at them one-to-one, yeah, it's still cheaper if gamers decide to stay on PlayStation to just go out and buy Call of Duty for the year on the PlayStation platform rather than investing in the Xbox and then spending the money on Xbox Game Pass. They also say here, Xbox plans to bring Activision Blizzard content to its multi-game subscription Game Pass. This will benefit gamers, boosting the value of the subscription and expanding access to Activision Blizzard content. Activision Blizzard has not allowed its content to be included in third-party subscriptions in any meaningful way in the past. Again, this increased competition has not been welcomed by the market leader Sony, which has elected to protect its revenues from sales of newly released games, rather than offer gamers the choice of accessing them via its subscription PlayStation Plus. And that's a direct shot as to what Sony has come out and said, that they are not putting their first-party games into the PlayStation Plus service. They doubled down on that. Just recently, Yoshida did come out and say that that's not something that they are looking at doing right now. I still believe they will eventually do that. I think that they are going to see, once this deal goes through, once all these games go over to Xbox, that they're going to have to do stuff like that really in order to compete. And I said that in my previous video. They have that right in front of them. If they think that they can't compete, but they also won't put their first-party games into the service, it doesn't have any logical sense to it. Because if they do come out tomorrow and say that they are going to be putting their first-party games into PlayStation Plus on day one, that's going to attract a good amount of attention. Even the people that only play third-party, which is the majority of players on PlayStation, are going to look at that and consider signing up to the service, because they're going to think to themselves, well, I play this game here that isn't in the service, but hey, maybe since I'm on the platform, I'll check out all the first-party stuff in there for the monthly cost of $17 a month or whatever it is. So lots more information coming out. This is going to continue until this deal is approved or denied, whatever happens from the CMA and then the FTC going forward. But we're really getting an insight as to PlayStation versus Xbox, the real console wars from the business perspective of things. But that's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on Strauss Zelnick's comments? And what do you think about PlayStation blocking Xbox Game Pass from coming onto the platform? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.